Nick, just after the second quarter when I talked to you at halftime, you said you felt like the momentum was coming to your side, and in that second half, it felt like you had a lot of chances out there. So what was the difference?
Yeah, it was a game of a lot of ebbs and flows. We finished the first half pretty strong with some points. And then unfortunately, they come out and I think they score in 2 or 3 plays. We kind of take that back, and then we got it back at the end. I felt like we were rolling. I felt like we had them on the ropes. Their defense tired, just being on the field for a long time during those last 2 drives. And unfortunately, things happen. That's one of the best returners our game has ever seen before. And probably thinks it's pretty good. Tell people to get ready for overtime, forgetting that they got all back there returning the kicks. It's tough to lose that way, but there's a lot of things we could have done to avoid being in that situation.
Your coach was pretty heated in his post-game presser. What was your biggest takeaway from his message when he came in here after the game?
We can't make a bunch of mental mistakes. When it comes to penalties, even if you're not penalized, just not doing your job, trying to make a play when it's not your play to make, understanding that there's 12 guys in the field, and whether it be a kickoff on an offensive pass concept or a coverage, understanding you have to do your job in your assignment, you have to be in your lane, and trust everybody else is going to be in theirs, and that got us in trouble both with a lot of penalties and unfortunately, guys getting out of position.
Bright's point there, Ryan, was pretty heated there post game, but he did say there's no panic in this room, and that you guys are so compliant is here, that everyone's pulling together. Curious to what you said to the group following the game and what Ryan said as well.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn from losses, and you don't want to take too many. You don't want to put yourself behind the 8 ball early on in the season, and you're playing must-win football for months on end down the stretch. But at the same time, 3 losses isn't going to keep you out of the playoffs in this league. So there's still a lot of time. There's a lot of games left, and we just have to have urgency, coming back and get ready to go. Because you can say that 3 losses, isn't going to keep you out, but if that turns into 4 or 5, you want to have just the ball rolling downhill at the end. So we got to have urgency coming in here tomorrow, watching film, that we will fix this and fix it as fast as we can.
I know from being on the field it was very chippy. A lot of words were said. I'm just kind of curious what you made of it, and is that something that you enjoy as a player when it kind of gets heated like that?
No, personally, I never really get chippy. I try to be as complimentary of the other team, particularly the defensive line, as I can throughout the game. But anytime you're in a 9-team league, you play everybody at least twice a season. They have a lot of players that have played with us in the past, whether it be here or on other teams. So there's that familiarity and just the rivalry of having a lot of veterans on both sides of the ball that have played against each other for years. Tempers are going to flare, in this competitive field, but you have to make sure that it doesn't boil over into penalties. And unfortunately, it did on too many occasions.
And Nick, sorry, I'm just curious in your thoughts. I mean, you came in here last year, mid throughout the year, and you look at the progression of Kevin Mattel. I mean, big touchdown in the Grey Cup last year. I mean, he's kind of looking like your number one here. What have you seen from him in his progression in the second year in the CFL?
Oh, I mean, I think his off-season work was unmatched. He went back home to Quebec and kind of went off the grid. Nobody really heard from him. He wanted it that way. And, he came back into training camp, surprised us. He was, maybe 20 pounds less than he was in the Grey Cup. Lean and strong and running faster than he ran before, really polishing a lot of his route running. And he opened a lot of eyes early on in training camp. We're like, oh, this guy's really gets it. He's arrived. He understands the game. And he's obviously been putting in a lot of work. And that's kind of just translated, building trust with the quarterback room and, carving out a good role for him in the offense.
What's the good that comes out of the line that gets blurred between aggressiveness and taking penalties? And how can you make adjustments? Is that something, they're saying, the saying is you can lead a horse to water, but can you make them drink? And reining a horse in sometimes is simpler. Do you think that's a case here?
You want to be aggressive and physical, and having that little edge to you is great. You need that, but there's discipline that comes with understanding where that line is. When you can't make that extra push, you can't throw your helmet in a headbutt fashion or your hands into somebody's head after the whistle. Understand that you can be really physical between the whistles, and you know, you can talk and you can chirp at the other opponent, but there's a line, and it takes discipline to push to that line and then stop. And you know, teams and some players have been really good in the past of doing that, and a lot of times they draw penalties from the other team with their own discipline because the other team doesn't know when to stop and they retaliate. And you want to make sure, you know, our identity is not that team that retaliates and goes overboard. And gets a lot of penalties.
To that point, your coach has a very high standard, and in his passion, we could see that the team wasn't meeting that standard. Do you believe in this team?
Oh, 100%. You know, we had a lot of new faces, a lot of new guys coming in out of the lineup. I mean, countless guys from last week's step chart didn't even dress for today. And so, you know, we're still putting together our, you know, how we're going to win, and kind of building our formula, building the culture within our team. And you know, I expect us to get it rolling, and we just got to make sure it doesn't take too long to do that.
Thank you, Nick.
Thanks, Nick.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.